Good afternoon. This is April 23rd, 2024, the 12 o'clock Selectmen's Chambers. I'd like to call this meeting to order and roll call, please.
Teresa Morse present.
Joe Shank, present, zoomed in.
Chad Sexton-Duranian present. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank all those in service to our country, past and present, and our first responders. The meeting is being recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube. And it will be uploaded to Channel 9 after the completion. 1.4 Chairman's additions and deletions. I do not have any. Do you guys have any?
I do not.
I do not.
Joe?
I do. No, I don't.
Okay. 1.5 Review and approve meeting minutes. We do not have any. I want to jump right down to 3.1. I'd like a motion to appoint Rowan Congdon to the Cemetery and Parks Department as part-time intermittent seasonal laborer with start effective date of 5/14/2024.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I have all the necessary paperwork, so I don't have any issues. So all those in favor?
Teresa Morse, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton-Duranian, yes. 3.2, I'd entertain a motion to appoint Alex Stiletto to the Police Department as probationary full-time police officer for a term effective May 8th, 2024 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Again, this brings this to the date that we're going to appoint all of them at the same time. That's why it's such a short term. Since there's no discussion, all those in favor?
Teresa Morse, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton-Duranian, yes. 4.1, review and approve debt loan. Eric, you want to take that one away?
Yes, this is the capital projects that were approved for at the last annual town meeting. This is to complete the borrowing for those capital projects. That includes the F-350 pickup and plow for the highway department, the culvert inspection camera for the highway department, the wing plow for the highway department, the full-size pickup for the facilities department, and the flammable storage cabinets for the facilities department. So it's just a capital authorization for capital debt borrowing and furtherance of last year's capital plan.
So what would the motion be?
It would just be a motion to approve a debt loan for $142,500 for the approved capital projects as listed.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion on that?
hey, Chaz, just so
Yeah.
you know, I'm gonna probably get to a bad area in about a minute or so, but if I bump off, you don't see me. Just give me a minute before you continue. Will you hear me?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Joe.
Okay.
So any further discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa Morse, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton-Duranian,
Joe
yes.
Shank, yes.
Yeah, we got it, Joe.
We got it.
4.2, second reading to the review, we'll look for a motion to approve the personnel policies addendum in regards to the fractional employees.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Do we want to read that one liner?
I think it probably makes sense.
Okay. You have it? I don't think I have
I
it.
can pull it up.
I have it in front of me if you want me.
Yep, go ahead.
So Article 1, we're changing the definition probationary period and amend 6 months to 1 year. Article 2, where holidays, we're amending the section that starts with full-time employees to state full-time employees, part-time employees, and fractional employees as defined in Article 1. And we're deleting the following section that starts with part-time employees.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Nope, I'm good.
That's the second reading we had, so all those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Joe Shank, yeah.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. So if we can get that up on the website after we get it,
Yeah, we'll get that edited.
okay. 4.3, reorganization of the select board.
So I'd like to make a motion that
Make
we
a motion.
appoint,
Hang on, Joe.
that we appoint Chaz as the chair and myself as vice chair.
Nope, I'm not seconding that. I'd like to make a motion, Chaz, that we leave the board as is. Chaz, this, I don't know how we do this.
Well, there's a motion that has been made on the floor. We can do one of two things. I could second it and then we could vote on it, or you can amend the motion. One of the two.
Chaz, I amend the motion.
Sounds like we're going to a bad spot. Yeah, so Joe's frozen.
Okay. So,
Chaz, you be the chair. I stay vice chair. And Teresa stays clerk.
So that was a motion by Joe to amend the earlier motion.
All right, give me 1 minute. Can you hear me any better now?
yeah,
Any better,
we,
Chaz?
yeah, we
All right,
we
can you
heard
hear
that.
me?
Yeah,
Yep. So that was a motion to amend the earlier
Hello?
motion to we can hear you, Joe.
All right,
and he just dropped out.
Lost him completely.
So he made an emotion. He made a motion to amend the motion.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to ignore Joe's motion because he dropped off.
He's right there.
You're muted,
You're
Joe.
muted now, Joe. Can you unmute him? You can't.
No, he has to mute himself. Joe, you're still muted.
all right, let's try that again. So I want to make a motion to revise the motion on the floor. Chaz be the chair, Joe be the vice chair, and Teresa be the clerk.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Your first motion was not really put on the floor because it wasn't.
It wasn't seconded.
Right, so now you're entertaining really a new motion.
Yeah, so I think you as the chair should declare that the first motion died for lack of a second and open up for a subsequent motion. That would be the simplest thing to do.
All right, then I will declare that that was, the first motion has died with the lack of second motion. We'll entertain the motion that's now on the floor, and I will second the motion that's on the floor. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Teresa?
No.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, no?
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. 4.4, discuss fiscal year 25 budget and override.
So this was a I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, through you to the board.
Yeah.
This is the provision that we put on to have a discussion following yesterday's override questions that were on the ballot before the warrant articles that are later in the meeting have to be finalized and submitted to the constable for posting for the annual town meeting and special town meeting on May 7th. As I'm sure all the members of the board know, the two override warrant articles yesterday failed. Both received votes in the 400s for positive and in the 800s for opposition. So it wasn't quite 2-1, but it was close. So at this point in time, given the lack of an override, the current budget is not balanced because of the budget requests from the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So our budget is approximately $1.75 million out of balance because of the lack of an override. Obviously, the budget that will be submitted on the warrant is going to be the current budget because we haven't received any. Obviously, we won't before we have to post the warrant. We won't receive any subsequent information from the school district. As we've mentioned all along, my anticipation is that the Neshoba budget gets voted, it gets approved because they only need 5 of the 8 towns to vote to approve it. And the majority of the towns are not looking for an override for Neshoba budget. So my anticipation would be that number is not going to change, the $287,000 that we are currently in deficit for the Neshoba budget. The $1.46 million deficit that currently exists for the North Middlesex Regional School District budget. The fact that their override for Townsend and the override for Pepperell both failed yesterday means in all likelihood that their budget will be rejected in its current amount. I've spoken to the superintendent of schools this morning. My anticipation is sometime within the next, sometime before our town meeting, we will get an amended budget from North Middlesex that will obviously be up to the administration and the school board what that amended budget look like. I do not have any information as to what that number is going to look like.
So are we moving forward with what we have in it currently?
So I think for what's on the warrant, we have to post what it is currently because that's the assessment, the current assessment from the school district.
Okay.
We can amend that and provide appropriate information on the day of town meeting if that number has changed. In the past, I know we've changed the school budgets as they've come in to provide that information for people and then have read off the accurate information so that what they get on the day is accurate. But the printed warrant will have the existing budget because I believe we have to print that. That's the official request right now. So we are guaranteed to have, in my opinion, at least a $287,000 deficit, and we're likely to have a larger deficit if the North Middlesex doesn't come in with a level funded budget. And I don't think they're going to come in with a level funded budget over last year. They haven't made any indication that that's something that they're even contemplating. So there are things I think between now and town meeting that the Board of Selectmen have to discuss about how we are going to handle this shortfall. As I mentioned to members of the board, I have gone back to the various departments at the department head meeting and let them know that they needed to present me with a department level budget that cuts 10% of their department budget. Given the total amounts of the the department level budgets and the things we have that are able to be cut. So for instance, we can't cut our assessment from retirement. That's not optional. There are things that are contractually obligated, but the things that we could cut, if everybody cut 10%, that would be, $900,000 to a $1.1 million cut, depending. That would likely result in a drastic cut of services, because there are some departments for whom the only costs they have are salaries and wages. So that means those departments would be cutting staff.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
How many of the town's cost is in health insurance?
So our health insurance cost is a little over $1 million.
And is that contractual that they have to have, like, there's much cheaper plans, but then you have like a $5,000 deductible, right? Is there anything in their contract that the plan has to have a lower deductible or anything like that? I'm just trying to say, is there any options along that route to cut into insurance? Because you can significantly cut costs, but then the person would have to put out a lot more on there.
Sure. So when the town last made a change to its insurance policy was when they went from being self-insured to Maya. And that requires a convening of the insurance advisory board, which includes members of all the unions.
Right.
I can certainly ask town council what we have at our disposal with respect to those.
Yeah, if we're
sorts of
in Maya, though,
costs.
we're not gonna get much of a deal outside going self-insured. Okay.
Yeah, Maya provided us with some options that would have resulted in some savings,
Right.
but the savings we're talking about were, 1.5% off of the increase.
Okay. And Maya didn't have any high deductible plans that it was offering.
Yeah, I don't know about those specifics. That was not something we brought up.
Just so that you know how this work is, like I said, you got a high deductible,
Sure.
but then you have to offer them to have be able to put the funds in as part of their paycheck, and then they pay for that. Okay.
Mr.
So,
Chaz,
no,
Go ahead.
can I guess if Eric's gonna take some questions about this, I do have a real problem. I do understand, Eric, that, the first thing we do is we start, we're gonna cut 10% of all our department budgets. As far as I'm concerned, our budgets, our departments are not budgeted the way they should be, and we all understand that. Before we start threatening to cut any of our budgets, I think the school committee needs to sit back. They need to figure this out. They can't come to us or any other town and expect us just to eliminate our staff. We're so razor thin on everything now. I wouldn't support that. And by all means, I support teachers, and I think they're the ones that are getting the bad rap on this whole thing. But they got to cut the fat at the top. There's factual things. There's people been hired recently with triple-digit, six-digit figures that they just got hired. They need to cut them. And I'm not in favor of threatening any of our employees or any of our departments that we need to start cutting them. That's ludicrous.
So I agree with Joe in that I don't believe that we have departments in the town that are running with an excess of staff. In fact, most of the departments, if asked, would tell you they probably need assistance. I just made the ask so that we would know, because I think it's important for the Board of Selectmen to know if the school and the other towns, because unfortunately part of this being in a regional school district means that budget is not 100% controlled by Townsend. If Ashby and Pepperell did pass it, we would be required to fund it. This is more of a, to provide the Board of Selectmen with the information of what it would take to get that 10% cut. And I agree with you. I think that would be a bit draconian. I think the cuts that would be made in staffing, I don't think that'd be appropriate, but this is to provide the board information. There are other options that we have looked at. One of the options that I think we have looked at is the ability for the town through the Board of Selectmen to impose a trash fee. There are it is without going to town meeting. I believe the Board of Selectmen could impose a fee to pay for trash. That would save the town the current amount that is budgeted for trash in our budget, which is $825,000. By bringing in that an amount of local revenue, additional local revenue equal to that, whatever the cost is for trash. We did, and we'll be discussing this when we discuss the special town meeting warrant, but we did get information from the Board of Health that the amount that we had budgeted in for trash is not sufficient for the contract that the trash hauler have brought. So we proposed a $70,000 increase over last year's cost for trash, which was not quite a 10% increase, close to a 10% increase. It's the lowest amount looks like it's going to be about $140,000 increase over last year's trash amount. So there's a $70,000 gap there that we also have to discuss. But a trash fee, I think, would be, unpopular. And I think folks in the town have gotten used to having their trash services and having it paid for through the tax levy. So that is another option, though, to come up with the funds if this school budget passes and the town has to come up with funds to fund.
How many times can a town, regional have to be two towns, Pepperell, let's say Pepperell and Townsend. How many times can we reject it and it go back to the school board?
There's not a limit.
There's no limit. Okay.
But each time the town rejects the budget,
They have to come with a lower number.
if it was two out of three towns, they have to come back with a number that is lower. Now
But it
that,
could be $1.
I mean, that statutorily, that just means it could be $1, but yes, they have to come back with the lower budget. If it goes into next year, in other words, if there isn't a budget voted on by July 1, I believe they have to proceed with the prior year's level funded budget.
Yeah,
So
that is
does
true.
the town.
Well, it depends on how the town voted its budget. Because I think that if the town
If you
votes,
don't have a balanced budget and the school is part of that budget, then you have to do, it's like a temporary budget, because we had to do that once before.
so either way, there are ramifications if the school budget doesn't get passed. And we'll obviously have to figure out the specifics if it gets to that point.
And isn't there, I'm sorry,
Mr. Chair?
Hang on. Go ahead.
isn't there at one point a you can bring mediation in on the budget?
I would have to look that up. I'm not familiar with that.
Thank
But
you.
doesn't mean it's not the case. But I'm not familiar with it.
For my
Charles?
information,
Hang on, Joe.
I'm just confused about one thing. The number that's in the line item for the schools right now, from what I heard, that's a level funding from last year's assessment, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we didn't even give the schools a 2.5% increase.
That's correct.
Okay, what did we tell them we could afford? Just a level funded budget? Because usually there's some negotiation back and forth before we got here, which would say, you know what, we can afford 5% over last year's assessment.
Well, we've had several negotiations with them. We have been very open with what we said that we could afford. We've talked about.
And what it came out with is all you can afford is a level funding.
No,
No.
Well, so the answer was, I think the question, I apologize, is what can the town afford without an override?
Correct.
And it, I think we told them, 2%, maybe less, but that wasn't, we never came up with a final number where we said, this is what we need to do, because the amount they came back with was so much over what we could afford. It wasn't as though we were in a negotiation range, because the $1.4 million is not, I didn't want to negotiate against ourselves by saying, oh, we can afford something more.
No, I understand, and that helps me understand it. Mayor, just one other comment, question. So if we said we can afford a 2% increase, can't quite afford 2.5% because our budget's up too, right? That if we were going to amend their line item on the floor, we could amend it to that 2%.
Well, that would involve cuts, because we did not fund our budget because of the amount that they came out with. We did not fund our budget including 2%. We funded our budget including a 0% increase.
So we spent the 2% that we would otherwise have given them.
So we decided to not have to come back for an override for town services, which we may have had to do. We didn't do that. We made the determination, the board made the determination that they were going to request the override fully for the school services.
So my question here, Eric, Chaz, is, and I respect all the townspeople. I get all that, but first and foremost, we have to fund schools to a point. I understand that.
We lost them again.
The people spoke very loud that they don't want that Prop 2.5 override. And I, for sure in the hell, I'm not looking to start cutting staff nor services in our town. And if we need to cut or have trash paid to pick up, then people have to understand they have to give something somewhere. And I just, as soon as we cut fire, police, highway, they're all going to be down our throats that the roads aren't good enough, the potholes are bad, the streets aren't taken care of, fire department didn't get there fast enough. Well, enough is enough. The town spoke. So now, if that's what we're going to do, pay to pick up trash, I have to pay as well as everybody else. That's what we need to do, because we got to put this to rest. We can't let this continue forever.
So this is more of just kind of a discussion of options. I think sometime over the next couple of weeks before the annual town meeting, we'll have to flesh out some other possibilities, and hopefully I'll be getting information back from the department heads about what that would look like, because I think it's important that the board knows what the 10% cut would look like.
Correct, and that's part of this budget, and the town administrator and I have been in conversation again this morning in regards to what the available options that we have, and that's really what we're talking about right now. There are several options available to us, and we need to all be thinking on what we need to. I also want to say that we have to think that what we're not funding this year is going to be something that we need to look at for the following year as well. So this is not just fiscal year 25. We have to make sure that we're mindful that this situation is going to occur again next year.
Yeah, I get it.
Just
So where do you want to go from here, Eric?
Well, so this was not a requirement for any votes or anything. This was
Yeah.
just a kind of an informational after the override as to what the options were.
Yeah, Cindy?
Yeah, I just want to mention from experience, hopefully you're not planning on the chaos that I'm ensuing, I see ensuing. I just want to comment that it's important that you have a budget, fixed, balanced budget to present at town meeting. If you leave it that it's unbalanced, chaos would ensue, because you're leaving it to the voters to make amendment after amendment after amendment.
Our plan is to,
Everybody's
our
favorite.
plan is to have a balanced budget
Yes,
for
and,
town meeting. That's what our plans are.
Yeah, hopefully that's, and I know, 10%, that's clearly going to mean layoffs, there's no question about it. And I know that we've done it in the past, but it's been maybe 25, 30 years since we've had to, maybe I'm exaggerating, but we've done it, it's been, okay, you've looked good. Unfortunately, there's time, the economy is such that costs are exceeding what people want to spend, and we're stuck there, and salaries is one of the biggest things that I know employees, whether they work for a town or private industry, the cost of living is causing a need to have salaries, which is causing the need to have unfortunate layoffs in some places. I also want to comment about trash collection, not just speaking my own thoughts on whether I want trash collection, but it's been a sacred cow going back many, many years. And I often make jokes about the year that we made it a sacred cow, and I'm not gonna blame the certain police chief that, no. But it was when I first moved here 42 years ago, it was one of the first town meetings, maybe the first town meeting I ever attended, when trash collection was scooped out unbeknownst to the voters at the town meeting, and come July 1st, when the trash wasn't getting collected, we had a special to bring it back. I don't remember if there was an override involved with that year. Some of our overrides that we have had in the past have been about trash collection, but it's such a sacred cow. And I think it would be worse than if the override had passed. But also financially, I think it would be worse. For each individual taxpayer, I think the household cost of paying for trash individually and having individual contracts would exceed the household cost had we passed the school override. That expecting to say, okay, you didn't pass the override, now we're going to charge you more than you were chatting on Facebook about the increase in what it's going to cost you to have basic services done. I think it's unfortunate, but that I've been watching the Board of Health meetings, and I know that they're frightened by it too, but they see that they're doing what they can, and I support what I've been seeing. That it's one of those basic services that is a necessity in life. And
Well, Cindy, I do,
people talking about
I
just
appreciate,
leaving their trash in the end.
I appreciate your comments here, and I just want to say that we're really just kind of throwing ideas
I
out,
know.
so it's not anything else, and I do want to be very clear that we have gone over, and then we'll get to you, Kathy, I promise.
And that's all I wanted to,
Yeah.
I just wanted to,
Yeah, but I do want to say that we have in the discussions that I've had with the town administrator, that there are several options that are available, that we're looking at. We wanted, my big point, to a lot of these things is to make sure that we're transparent and we're allowing everybody to know that we are discussing these things individually, that it's not something that this is what we're gonna do. We're saying these are the options available to us. Kathy?
This question is probably more for Eric, but if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
So the 10% cuts for departments. Many of our employees are union employees. How does that affect that? Would the cut actually affect union employees?
So if you have to eliminate or reduce the hours of a position,
Because there's no funding,
yeah, because there's lack of an appropriation. Generally speaking, that's something that just happens.
okay, all right.
You have, this year we have funding for a 30-hour position. If we only have funding for 20-hour position next year, then we inform them that it's gonna be reduced to a 20-hour position, and they have to
Okay.
make a
And as
determination.
long as it's basically across the board, it doesn't affect
As long as there's
one
not,
person so much more than the next.
no, as long as you're affecting people who have the same job title.
Oh, right, right. I see
Like you
what you're
can't,
saying.
I mean, you
Right.
you are, well, even that, you could eliminate, if you have 3 of the same job title and you eliminate one of them,
Yeah.
then you eliminate one. How that gets eliminated is decided by the union contract. Generally
Okay.
speaking, it's a seniority thing, so that you don't get to choose if you're eliminating 3 additional positions, who goes, the
Yeah.
union seniority does.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, if we're making budget cuts or reducing in hours, union and non-union employees would be affected by that.
okay. All right. And we should still factor in their union raises, but more go with
Well,
the hours.
their raises are contractual, so
So
that's.
that's, okay. All right, I just am trying to figure out
Yeah,
how
so
to,
you,
to look
yeah,
at it.
so yeah,
Okay.
it would be their.
The board, I think Kathy would be able to, will try to consider all of that and
Okay.
to have the least amount of impact on the greater whole.
Okay, all right, just trying to get a handle on it, thank you.
Teresa?
I know we're all keeping our fingers crossed and hoping we can get this worked out with the schools and, get, school committee members to just understand that these are options that we're gonna have to go to if they can't, but I'm banking on that bucket. But the thing with the trash, I just have a question on that. You say under this law, we as the town selectmen can actually
Impose a fee. Yes.
impose the fee. But can the town come back at the meeting and put something on the meeting floor? Just open up the meeting floor and saying, we reject your imposing the fee.
No, I don't believe fees are subject to town meeting. The
Okay,
fees
that's
are
what I thought,
the
right.
chief executive officer. I did run this by town council when this.
Just
was a
like they couldn't
possibility.
reject a bill, increases when we are going to be looking at increasing fees for fishing licenses or whatever. They can't,
The
they
fees
can
are within the
reject-
purview of the chief executive.
okay, but they can, okay. So other new articles that we are coming forward to that don't have to do with fees, that does go to the floor, like lighting and stuff. But
Sure.
anything with a fee,
Right.
they can't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that fee, and I did discuss this extensively with town council to try to make a determination as to the power of the board of selectmen, and that is within the purview of the board of selectmen. And so,
And do we have any sense, like, I know we're going to be having, audit for the lack of a better word, but I know you have some concerns about the way it is, but this outside company that was supposed to come in and look at all, zoning laws and, et cetera, and also look at the fee schedule, attached to those as compared to towns around us. Do we have any sense if we have to, if there's leeway in that as well, like building fees, building permits, et cetera, like that? How
those
much?
fees?
Yeah, how much that brings in and how much an increase in that could bring in?
I mean, just like other fees, those fees are within the purview of the board of selectmen.
Okay.
So we could, I mean, one of the other things that's on the table is looking at other incremental fees that are charged. But the local receipts the town brings in from those fees, I mean,
Are not
our
that
total
high.
building permit fees are, I think $100,000.
Okay, thank you, that's what I was
So a
just trying to
fractional
get a
change in
sense.
that is not gonna.
So even if we double dog licenses, it's not gonna make a big
Yeah,
difference,
that's
that's what
a-
I was trying to get.
Those fees are
Okay.
not a significant driver of revenue into the town.
Thank you.
Sue?
Just a couple things, the revenue projections that we're going by right now are still based on the governor's budget, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Things aren't going well at the state level right now. But there's always a chance that some of the aid could increase. So we could possibly have an upside by the time the legislature is through doing what they're doing in terms of assisting towns. I would not be as optimistic about it this year as I've been in the past because of what's going on at the state level, but you can keep that hope alive in the background, maybe. But it's not gonna save you totally. My concern about the 10% across the board is that all departments are not created equal. My suggestion would respectfully be that you look at what are the priorities for the Board of Selectmen from the town perspective. Because if you need to make tough decisions, you're gonna need to know what your priorities are to keep things running.
Mhm. Well, and again,
Okay,
we're just throwing out options
Right, I
on what we
understand,
do,
and
so
that's
we
why
would
I-
definitely
and
get in
that's
a
why I'm
granular
throwing that
level.
out.
Yeah.
But in that spirit, if you were willing to entertain, having a few more heads added to a work session to help you come up with possible options.
Mhm.
One that comes to my mind, besides that priority way of looking at cuts, would be, similar to the way that they do it in, Lunenburg and other communities, and that's you have to buy bags over a certain amount, whatever, for trash, okay? It's not quite the same as fees, but I don't know if it would be more palatable that way or not. I think it might actually encourage more recycling, for folks, that are throwing stuff in the trash that they shouldn't be.
Mhm.
But,
Well, I wanna
What
open
I'm
that up to
suggesting-
a future discussion when we
Right.
get to that point.
right, but what I'm suggesting is if you want volunteers for some kind of a brainstorming session for, we could look at this, we could look at that, I would be glad to help, and I'm
Okay.
sure others might,
Okay, I appreciate that.
all right?
All right, and I got your number too.
Yes, I know you.
I just have a quick question, Jessica.
Mhm.
Take up too much time. You're talking about the fees that are within the purview of the Board of Selectmen, and town meeting can't really vote on that. But can we vote on the budget, which is, there's trash collection is certainly paid for through the budget. If it's not included in the budget, in the Board of Health departmental budget, which I think it's where it would normally be, we could on the floor amend the budget, the amount that would cover the trash collection.
It will still be in the budget.
Oh, will be.
Oh, yeah, the amount would still be in the budget because the fees would come in as local receipts.
Mhm.
So say our local receipts, I'm pulling them up, say our local receipts were 1.5 million last year. We would impose a trash fee that would pay for the entirety of an $892,000 trash contract. So our local receipts would then go from 1.5 million to 2.39 million. But the budget would stay the same, but we would show more local revenue because of
How would
increase in
people pay
fee.
this fee?
Maybe billed every quarter,
Would be what?
billed every quarter based on the prior 3 months total tonnage.
And what if they don't pay it?
Just like a water utility fee would probably
Yeah,
would roll over to your tax bill.
Can you walk down?
Mr. Chair,
So again, I don't wanna get into
Yeah.
the granular level on that. That is one option, because we still have to talk about the contract in regards to other facets when we get to the next thing. As far as we stand now, we'll need to be able to set up some maybe work sessions to be able to kind of work through this.
Sure, once we get some information back from the department heads and from the schools to get an idea as to what their next ask is gonna be.
So did you set a timeline for the departments, or did you just kind of throw it out there?
I told them I wanted, I think I said I wanted it by the 1st.
I didn't hear a date, quite honestly. I thought you just said, just work on it.
Yeah, I think I wanted it by the 1st, but I can certainly send
So,
it.
yeah, if we can send something out and find out, once we get that information, if it can be, shared with the board, and then we'll set up, like a work session. And I'd be more than glad to anybody that wanted to come to that to provide us input. I don't have
How
any,
would that work with the finance committee?
we'd have to talk with them as well.
And I think inviting them to the work session
Yeah.
like that would probably make sense.
Because isn't that what they're doing? I mean, they're on like Tuesdays and Thursdays every week now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we just need to be,
make sure,
Yeah.
right, I want to make sure they're,
well, I want to be able to be on the same page as finance committee so that we
yeah,
all,
exactly.
everything is recommended and we're gonna move forward with a balanced budget. I mean, that's the goal. That are here, but Eric, if you could send something out to let people know that we need to get that sooner rather than later, I'd appreciate it.
Yes.
And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to move on to 4.5, to sign off. Final review and sign off of the special town meeting warrant.
So, as we discussed, the special town meeting warrant, at the meeting on the 16th, that was sent out to the town council, who reviewed it, and he made some kind of very minor changes to it. The one significant change is as a result of the Board of Health meeting yesterday, where they did officially submit a request to the Board of Selectmen to go to town meeting to approve a 5-year contract with the trash and recycling vendor. So because of the charter doesn't allow for contracts over 3 years to be done by the Board of Selectmen without town meeting approval. I did, in advance of this meeting, I did discuss with town council what a article would look like. So the Board of Selectmen the Board of Health would like to put onto the warrant 2 separate options for 5-year contracts to be reviewed and approved by town meeting. The first is a 5-year contract with Shaw and Son Incorporated, which would include toters. So it would include a trash can, a 64-gallon trash can, and a 64-gallon recycling bin for each house. And there's a projected cost for that goes out several years. And then the second article was a proposed 5-year contract for trash and recycling services that does not include toters. So it would maintain the current way that folks do their trash.
So the toters are the receptacles that they have the machine that goes out.
Yeah, it has a
grabs
claw and grabs it
in and put it in.
So that's the difference, is you wouldn't be able to use your own trash can. You'd have to use the trash can that's provided by us if they use the toters, because it's the only one that can grabbed and dumped into the truck. So those 2 articles have now been placed in the draft of the town meeting. Like I said, those articles were signed off orally by the town council on the phone. You see, and I walked through them. The remainder of the articles are identical to what we already discussed.
For Article 12 and 13, those 2 articles, where is our dollar amount? Are we just gonna put it on the floor?
Yeah, that would be as part of the presentation by the Board of Health on the floor. The articles themselves I asked town council whether the articles were required to have the amounts, and they're not.
So that would be an article that the Board of Health would be presenting.
Yeah, so they would be presenting the options between those 2 different contracts, and would, I think, be requesting that the town meeting vote on one and decline the other. Although I suppose the town could vote yes on both of them and put it back on the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen to decide which one to do, but in theory, I think they want the town to choose.
Okay.
And the remainder of the articles are identical to what they were on the 16th.
One more quickie, if I may.
Well, we're just talking about what we're putting on for the warrant, so,
It's really,
but it's something that I'm not gonna take any more comment on that. So this is, has this been brought to the Finance Committee as well?
I do not know whether the Board of Health has brought that to the Finance Committee.
Okay.
So I know the Finance Committee, I believe,
They meet
has been
Thursday,
looking
but
at
I won't be here,
the budget,
so.
but once this is approved, we'll get it to the clerk's office for the constable to post this afternoon, and we'll make sure that the finalized version gets to the FinCom for them to review and approve as well. But again, I don't know whether or not they've had anything to do with it.
Okay, so all we're then is just to sign off on the special
The
town
warrant.
meeting warrant.
Yes.
With the addition of those 2.
Yes.
Chaz?
Yep, go ahead.
I just, I guess my problem I have is, every other department had to have their budgets to us by a certain date. As far as I'm concerned, for the Board of Health, the last second to try to put our back against the wall to put 2 articles on our town meeting, a special town meeting, is unacceptable. And if we start doing that, every department's going to do it. And I don't think it's appropriate. They all knew their job. They should have done their job and got it to us before.
All I can say, Joe, is that's noted and it's on the record. But we do have to close the warrant today.
Yeah, and I, without discussing specifically what Joe had been mentioning, the reality is that the town does not have a trash recycling contract that goes past June 30th.
Mhm.
If the vendor is only wanting a 5-year contract, the only way to do that is to get onto, I apologize, should mute that, is to get onto town meeting. Because the board alone can't approve a 5-year contract. And so we would have to hold a special town meeting at whatever cost that would be, subsequent to this, if for some reason we decided to say no.
And Chaz, just so you know, we'll have to jump off this meeting in a couple of minutes. Is there anything that we need to discuss that's gonna need a vote before I get off?
Both of the warrant
warrants.
articles, so I'll entertain a motion to sign off on the special town meeting warrant as discussed.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. And the annual town meeting, 4.6.
So the warrant articles that we discussed on the 16th remain the same. There is an open question that I'm working with town council on to make sure that we have the latest version of the new outdoor lighting article. So he's checking with that. Obviously, we have the text. There's text in the annual town meeting about the new outdoor lighting article, but he just wants to make sure it's the version, the last version that he signed off on with any changes.
Okay, and that's the one you've been working on, Teresa?
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like Jimmy Board, I know.
So there's, again, the
Has all the diagrams that look familiar.
and there's also one article that was inadvertently left off of the earlier warrant, which is the correction to the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust bylaw. So there's just some clerical changes to
And that's the one where we left the place marker for.
Placeholder, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
So-
we were aware of that, both of
Okay.
those.
Yeah, so we are aware of all the articles that are there. There may be, again, some minor changes to the underlying text for some of the language that Adam is double checking on.
Mhm.
But the actual articles are going to stay, they're the same articles that we had
Okay.
earlier.
That we fully.
That we already discussed on the 16th.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to sign off on the annual town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion on that?
no.
All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes.
Joe Shank, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. So once we get that from Adam, then we can post that. So that
Yeah, I'm gonna
people are-
I'll make sure that I work with the town clerk's office so that the constable can get it in time to post it today.
Yeah, I gave her a heads up yesterday.
Thank you.
And Vice Chair Shank, we have the mandatory referral for the planning board for the 39 Greenville Road that we had discussed before. Do you have any comments in regards to that?
Is that the industrial property?
That is correct.
Well, I'll take the same stance I took before, that, people have the right to do what they want with their property. However, everybody wants us to try to, produce revenues and tax for the town. And if we eliminate industrial property and we can't get it back, maybe it would be something that, instead of eliminating the industrial piece of properties, we ought to change something in the bylaw to allow maybe houses instead of eliminating the industrial, because we never can go back.
So this is a mandatory referral and we have to have some sort of comment to the planning board for this.
I just did. That was my
Right.
opinion.
So would you feel comfortable if I worked with the clerk to be able to, put that verbiage in with what we all agree with and then submit it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can we do it that way?
What is the planning, but I didn't think that was the way the planning board was going on this property,
Well,
because there's already a house there, right?
there's a petition, a citizen's petition for this, so it's going in front of the town anyway.
Yeah,
And the planning board is asking for all of
This is
our,
just comments.
Yeah,
Comments
just
to the
what our
planning board about a
comments
are.
zoning
Okay.
change from industrial to residential.
right?
Yeah. But that is not my opinion, so.
That's
No,
what
I
I'm saying. This is, Joe gave us his input and then you and I can work
Yeah.
on what we want for
Yeah.
the, if Joe is okay with that.
I am all right with that. That's fine.
Okay. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can do it that way, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
we.
you just need to kind of figure out what comment you want to make if there's a.
Yeah, we can just say to the plan,
Gotta do it in a meeting.
Yeah, you would need to do it now. I think that, but Joe needs to sign off sometime
That's
during the
what I'm-
discussion.
What I'm saying, if Joe wants to sign off, he
Yeah.
can sign off and Teresa and I can work the wording out. If you're okay with that, Joe.
Yes, I am. I will sign off for what you guys say. You heard my input, right?
Yep.
This is only my opinion, but as a board, I give you my permission to write what the board should say.
Okay, loud and clear. I heard you loud and clear, Joe.
Thank you.
All right. And if you wanted to sign off, you can, sir, and have a great trip.
All right, I have to because I'm done. Thank you, guys. Have a
All
great
right.
night. All
All
right.
right. So in regards to that, Teresa, what are your thoughts on it?
well, my thoughts are, there is already a residential house on that property. And, because has already have a residential section, because there's plenty of frontage, because, like I said, the man has presented in his petition that he's trying to get his family closer to, that I think it should be allowed
Mhm.
in this situation. If there wasn't a house on there, my opinion would be much different. But he already has a house on that area.
Okay, well, there is already a house in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the two properties that he's proposing to rezone already has a pre-existing non-conforming residential house on it.
Correct. I have two plans of thought in regards to this. Yes, I agree that there was already, property on there. But I'm concerned about land that has been deemed industrial and we're gonna be turning it back over to residential. And what do we have left for for industrial land?
But we can, the zoning committee can go the other direction, right? We can take land that's out there without any homes on, that is commercial or residential now, and they have the option to try to move that to industrial.
Well, the difference between the two is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is kind of the nitty gritty of it. If it's commercial, you can have residential on commercial.
Right.
You can have a single family home on a commercial lot.
If it's industrial, you can't.
Okay,
So the zoning could change to say, yes, you can allow it on industrial and keep it zoned as industrial.
right, which makes me, why are we saying it's zoned industrial, but it has a commercial house on it? I think we've already made this non-conforming, right?
I think it was before it was made industrial.
Yeah, I don't know when that house was built, but my guess would be that the house predates
And
the,
I'm just saying,
being
there's
an
there's
industrial
other opportunities we have, in this town to look at other lots and see if we can make those industrial, instead of taking this piece of property
Right.
that is industrial and keep it industrial, because it already has a house on it. That's how I feel about it.
Correct. And that's my concern as well. I understand you went this way, I'm going. But that's my concern. It's zoned for industrial. And again, I agree with Joe's comment that people should be able to do what they want to with their land. I 100% agree with that. My only concern is that if it's, there's not many parcels left that are
Right.
zoned industrial.
So that's another action item that should be taken away from that. We really need to look at that, like, where can we go and start looking at zoning more areas industrial? But I don't think we should force this guy with a house on his property to keep his industrial, because there's not enough in the town.
And that's
Let's get
exactly my
more.
conundrum.
Yeah.
That's where I am too.
Yeah.
You know, I believe that, you know, that at some point that was deemed
Yeah.
an area for industrial, and they have different plans for it now,
Yeah.
which has changed. So,
I'd love to see something deemed industrial right on the border of New Hampshire.
well, in a lot of, there's, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vacant parcels
Right?
that are zoned industrial right
We
now.
need more.
That I agree with, you know, so.
And I want to make it clear, I'm not saying we don't need more. I just think
Right,
because he already has a house on it, because of the location near the dump, because of a bunch of other reasons, I just don't think this is an ideal industrial area anyway. So I'd like to see other parcels and let this guy extend his family.
so. Again, having said all of that, I also want to add that I do believe that it's really something that the boards or committees are the ones to make the decisions, because they're the subject matter experts in
Yeah.
regards to what it is. So I want to be able to let them,
So this is the Board of Selectmen's opinion. Joe has his opinion, Terry has, or however you, Terry this, Chaz that, Terry
Okay.
this way, Chaz that way.
Yeah.
But as always, the Board of Selectmen defer to your expertise.
that's,
I'm happy with
I'm
that.
okay with that, okay.
Okay.
So we want to add in, that the board feels how we want to put in for the
Whatever
industrial.
you want to do. I just want to get to Iceland.
I mean, I think it maybe something along the lines of the board is concerned about maintaining and or replicating industrial sites. But we defer to the expertise of the
But
planning
as this
board.
person already has a house residential, we tend to understand his desire to go residential, but as always, we defer to the board to make the decision.
Doing some wordsmithing.
It's fine.
The board is concerned about preserving existing parcels that are industrial, but agree that the landowner has the rights to do what they want regarding their property. The select board trusts the planning board to make the proper decisions in this matter.
Sounds good.
Oh, no, I don't need this. So all those in favor, well, let's make a motion. Are you okay with how we're wording that, Teresa?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. So we will submit that over to them, and that's gonna be on the,
On the 6th.
on the 6th, yeah.
Of course.
Today's the 23rd, right?
Yes.
Alright. Well, the next item on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion, Teresa.
To adjourn the meeting at 1:05.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Jess Sexton Duranian, yes. Thank you very much.